Buckle up, edgelords, because we've got something pretty edgy today. This is the Lofree Edge, and it's actually my first experience with a low-profile mechanical keyboard. So let's talk about it right after you click that like button. Or don't. I don't really care. So edgy. But first, who is Lofree? According to their website, they're a lifestyle brand created by a group of brainy designers focusing on the space at your fingertips, aka 2M squared. Whether at your office, in a living room, or going outdoors for fun, Lofree hopes to spice up your boring life with interesting products. Well, hopefully they can do a better job spicing up our lives than they can with giving us any meaningful information about who they are as a company, but that's neither here nor there. I've been seeing a trend among quote-unquote lifestyle brands lately, like Newfie and Lofree, where they try to obscure their origin, but I'm not a huge fan of that practice. According to this Forbes review of the Lofree Edge, they're based out of Hong Kong, but other info on the internet seems to suggest they're based out of Shenzhen, China. What that means to me is after-sales support might be a little sketchy, like we saw with the Newfie products, and their return policy, which clearly emphasizes the lack of a no-hassle return policy and no return shipping refund, doesn't exactly fill me with confidence. So that's the company. But what about the product? The Edge is a gasket-mounted compact 75% layout that is low profile, and it's made out of magnesium alloy and carbon fiber. It's thinner than a MacBook Air at just 5.4mm thin and weighs in at only 485 grams or just over 1 pound in freedom units. The design of the board is very minimal, with the only visible branding being this engraved Lofree logo on the side. Pretty tasteful. The board has per key white LED backlight, but the double shot PBT keycaps are not shine through, so the lighting is more for subtle ambiance than a functional backlight. The board can be connected via Bluetooth or wired, and there's a small toggle switch by the USB port to select your connectivity option. It's both macOS and Windows compatible, and they're advertising custom key maps with the Lofree Configurator app, although that hasn't been released yet. A little disappointing not to see QMK via support, but what are we gonna do? The board also has an adjustable kickstand to change from a 3-degree default type angle to 6 degrees, and there's a lot to unpack in this little board, so let's get to it. If you haven't heard of Cherry low profile switches before, they were first announced around 2018 as a reiteration of the Cherry ML low profile switch that was first released in 1996 and was discontinued in 2013. Based on the design of the MX low profile, which I'll refer to as LP, specifically the RGB ready clear top, it seems like Cherry's goal was to implement them in laptops as well as thin and light gaming keyboards. Unfortunately, LP switches never really took off for reasons that are well summed up in this drop forum thread. While the LP switch shares the MX branding and the same 14x14mm footprint, MX LP switches aren't compatible with typical MX PCBs, which means that you have to design a product from the ground up to be low profile compatible. That alone, along with the lack of apparent benefit for us enthusiasts, meant that LP switches are always going to be a niche within a niche, or some might say, a 2N squared? Another measure of the lack of popularity of LP switches are the lack of aftermarket support. To date, only Kale TTC and more recently Gateron have even released low-profile switches, and those only in pretty much the basic brown, red, and blue versions, unlike the literal millions of Cherry MX clone switches that exist in comparison. That being said, the switches in the Lofree Edge are full palm, which are unlike most other polycarbonate top, nylon bottom LP switches out there. Let's take a listen to this board in its default configuration, then with the kickstand up. As a side note, this board is pretty quiet, or as they say on their Kickstarter, library friendly. So I boosted the audio levels roughly 8 dB so you could hear the sound. Here's the typing test. So although it doesn't pick up too well on the mics, using the included kickstand made the keyboard very slightly louder and a little better sounding in my opinion. But either configuration is definitely quiet enough for office or library use. I personally have been testing the board with the kickstands down because 3 degrees was killing my wrists. But I could see someone who's used to typing on a laptop or a Magic Keyboard making a seamless transition to a board like this. Overall, the board sounds and feels way better than I thought it would, with my only point of reference being the keyboard on my MacBooks, but I'm still torn about who exactly would or should buy this board. After all, if you're into mechanical keyboards in the first place, there's way more tinkering capability and customizability with a traditional full-height MX board. From keycaps to switches to even board selection itself, that's not really up for debate. So if you need a portable keyboard, maybe for your living room or something, and you're currently using one of these Logitech travesties, then I could see the use case for a really thin and light keyboard that's Bluetooth compatible. But at that point, it's really a solution in search of a problem, and maybe that's why low profile has never really taken off. But let me know what you think in the comments below. The Kickstarter is currently live through May 25th. Check out some more keyboard content here. I'm MakerMods, and I'll catch you in the next video.